First contact. Commander Sarah Chen's escape pod pierced through the violet clouds of the uncharted planet, trailing smoke from its damaged thrusters. The neural interface in her flight suit flashed urgent warnings as the pod systems struggled to compensate for the unusual atmospheric conditions. Her research vessel, the Stellar Horizon, was now nothing more than scattered debris in high orbit after an unexpected collision with an asteroid field. "Come on, hold together," Sarah muttered, her hands flying across the manual controls. The pod's exterior temperature climbed as it descended through layers of iridescent clouds. Her sensors detected breathable atmosphere below, but that would mean nothing if she couldn't stick the landing. The first glimpse of the surface below took her breath away. Rolling hills covered in crystalline vegetation stretched to the horizon, their surfaces reflecting the light of twin moons hanging in the twilight sky. Massive tree-like structures towered above the landscape, their branches ending in glowing pods that pulsed with gentle blue light. Sarah managed to guide the pod into a relatively clear area, but the landing was far from smooth. The impact sent her strapped form lurching forward, and the pod skidded several hundred meters before coming to rest in a field of what looked like luminescent grass. After running a quick diagnostic on her suit's systems, Sarah activated the emergency beacon and checked her supplies. She had enough oxygen, water, and nutrition packs to last a few weeks, assuming Earth rescue protocols were still in effect this far out in unexplored space. As she emerged from the pod, her suit's sensors analyzed the air composition. To her surprise, it was not only breathable but remarkably similar to Earth's atmosphere, with slightly higher oxygen content. The twin moons cast everything in an ethereal purple glow, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with microscopic particles that danced in her helmet's light. A sound caught her attention, something between singing and the harmonic resonance of crystal glasses. It was coming from a grove of the towering bioluminescent trees. Sarah activated her suit's defensive systems, but kept her posture deliberately non-threatening. First contact scenarios were drilled into every explorer's training, but the reality of the moment made her heart race. From between the crystal-like trunks emerged three tall, graceful figures. Their skin had a subtle iridescent quality, shifting colors like the surface of soap bubbles in sunlight. They wore flowing garments that seemed to be made from living material, pulsing gently in rhythm with the lights in the trees above. The tallest of the three stepped forward, raising a hand in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. Sarah noticed their fingers were longer than human ones, with an extra joint, and their eyes were larger, with pupils that spiraled rather than dilated. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth," she said clearly, her suit's external speakers projecting her voice. "I come in peace." The beings looked at each other, and Sarah's suit detected subtle variations in the air's electromagnetic field. They were communicating, but not through sound. The tall one focused on Sarah again, and to her astonishment, spoke in perfectly accented English. "We are the Luminary. I am first speaker Astra. We have been expecting you." Sarah blinked in surprise. "Expecting me? How is that possible?" Astra's expression shifted in a way that might have been a smile. "Your species' radio waves reached us long ago. We have learned much about you. This meeting was inevitable, though its timing is significant." The other two luminary moved forward, their movements fluid and precise. One carried what appeared to be a staff made of living crystal, while the other held a small device that emitted soft pulses of light. "You arrived during the gathering," Astra continued, "when our people come together to share knowledge and strengthen our collective consciousness. It is a time of great importance." Sarah noticed more figures emerging from the crystal forest, dozens of them, all with the same ethereal grace, but with subtle variations in their iridescent coloring and the patterns of their living garments. "Your arrival was foretold in the ancient songs," one of the other luminaries spoke, her voice carrying a musical quality. "A traveler from the stars, arriving when the twin moons align." Sarah glanced up at the moons, now seeing that they were indeed moving into a perfect alignment. The crystal trees around them began to pulse more intensely, and the air itself seemed to thrum with energy. I'm afraid my arrival wasn't planned, Sarah explained. My ship was damaged. I'm stranded here until rescue comes. Astra's expression became more serious. Perhaps not unplanned, but part of a greater design. Come. There is much you need to understand, and time grows short. The gathering brings change, but it also brings danger. Your arrival may be more crucial than you know. As they led her through the crystal forest, Sarah couldn't help but notice signs of advanced technology integrated seamlessly with the natural environment. What appeared at first glance to be simple plants revealed themselves as sophisticated organic machines. The luminary had achieved what humanity had only dreamed of: perfect harmony between technology and nature. But something in Astra's words nagged at her. What danger could there be in this seemingly peaceful place? And why did they seem so unsurprised by her arrival? The answers would soon reveal themselves as the crystal forest opened up to reveal the vast city that defied everything Sarah thought she knew about alien civilization. Structures of living crystal and light rose into the purple sky, connected by bridges of pure energy. And at the center, a massive temple pulsed with power that made her suit's sensors spike off the charts. The gathering was about to begin, and Sarah Chen, lone human in an alien world, was about to learn that her crash landing was anything but an accident. Cultural barriers. The luminary city was a marvel of organic architecture. Towering spires of living crystal pulsed with internal light, connected by graceful arches that seemed to float on air. Sarah followed Astra through winding paths where the ground itself responded to their footsteps, creating subtle patterns of light that rippled outward. Our city is called Crystallis, Astra explained, leading Sarah to a structure that resembled a massive flower made of translucent crystal. It has stood here for 10,000 cycles, growing and evolving with our people. Inside, Sarah was introduced to the Council of Speakers, 12 luminary, whose skin shimmered with deeper, more intense colors than the others. They sat in a circular chamber where streams of light flowed between them like rivers of pure energy. The human arrives as the crystals dim. One of the council members spoke, her voice carrying a note of concern. The timing cannot be ignored. Sarah noticed it then. Subtle signs of decay in the crystal structures. What she had initially taken for natural variation in the light patterns was actually deterioration. The living crystal that powered their civilization was dying. "What's happening to your city?" Sarah asked, her scientific curiosity overtaking her awe. Astra's expression shifted, the colors beneath her skin darkening. "The crystal heart, the source of our power and harmony, is failing. Each cycle, its resonance grows weaker. This gathering may be our last if we cannot restore it." The council shared images directly into Sarah's mind. A gift, they explained, of their enhanced electromagnetic sensitivity. She saw the crystal heart, a massive geometric structure deep beneath the city, its facets dulling as its power waned. She also saw the consequences. Without its energy, the luminary's entire civilization would collapse. "Our ancestors spoke of a time when humans would come," another council member said. "They would bring new understanding, see patterns we could not." Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Her background in xenobiology and quantum mechanics might offer fresh perspectives on their crisis. "I'd like to help," she said, "but I need to understand your technology better. How does the crystal heart work?" What followed was a crash course in luminary science. Their technology operated on principles that merged quantum mechanics with biological processes in ways Earth scientists had only theorized about. The crystal heart didn't just power their city. It maintained a delicate balance in the planet's ecosystem. As Sarah studied their systems, she noticed something the luminary had overlooked. Their crystalline technology responded to consciousness, to thought patterns, but they had become so attuned to their own way of thinking that they couldn't see alternative approaches. "Your crystals," Sarah said, pointing to a diagnostic display. "They're not just power sources. They're like neurons in a vast network. But the network is stuck in a loop, using the same pathways over and over until they're burning out." Astra's eyes widened with understanding. like a mind that thinks the same thoughts, never growing, never changing. Exactly. You need new perspectives, new patterns of thought to create new pathways. Sarah paused, considering the implications. That's why you've been learning about humans. You needed our chaos, our different way of thinking. But before they could explore this revelation further, alarms began to sound throughout the city. The crystal structures pulsed with urgent red light, and Sarah's suit sensors detected massive energy fluctuations. The heart, Astra cried out. It's reaching critical instability. The council chamber erupted into activity. Through their shared mental link, Sarah saw the problem. The crystal heart's decay was accelerating, its energy patterns becoming chaotic. If it collapsed, the chain reaction would destroy not just the city, but potentially the entire region. I need to see it, Sarah insisted, up close. If my theory about thought patterns is correct, maybe I can help stabilize it. The council members exchanged glances, their skin colors shifting rapidly in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of intense discussion. Finally, Astra stepped forward. No outsider has ever entered the heart chamber, she said solemnly. But we are beyond such restrictions now. Follow me. As they rushed through the city's lower levels, Sarah saw more signs of the crisis. Crystal structures were dimming, some cracking under the strain of the heart's instability. The very air seemed to crackle with discordant energy. They'd reached a massive door covered in intricate patterns that moved and shifted like living things. Astra placed her hand on its surface, and it dissolved, revealing a pathway that spiraled down into the planet's depths. The heart chamber lies below, Astra said, her voice tight with concern. But I must warn you, what you're about to see will change you. The energies there, they affect more than just matter. Sarah checked her suit's integrity one last time. I understand the risks, but sometimes the biggest discoveries come from taking chances. As they descended toward the heart chamber, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to cross a threshold from which there would be no return. The fate of an entire civilization might rest on her ability to bridge the gap between human and luminary understanding. The crystal heart waited below, its failing light pulsing like a dying star. And with each step deeper into the planet's depths, Sarah felt herself drawing closer to a truth that would challenge everything she thought she knew about consciousness, technology, and the very nature of life itself. The heart chamber. The descent into the heart chamber felt like entering another world entirely. The spiral pathway was lined with crystals that sang with harmonic frequencies, each step producing ripples of light and sound that echoed through the massive cavern. Sarah's suit sensors were registering energy readings unlike anything in human scientific records. The chamber was discovered by our ancestors millennia ago, Astra explained as they descended. They didn't build it. They found it, already ancient, already alive. The path opened into a vast, spherical chamber that took Sarah's breath away. The crystal heart dominated the center, a geometric structure the size of a small building, its facets arranged in impossible patterns that seemed to fold in on themselves. But where it should have blazed with power, now it flickered weakly, its light dimming and surging erratically. It's beautiful, Sarah whispered, her voice catching as she took in the sight. Around the heart, smaller crystals floated in complex orbital patterns, each one pulsing in sync with the larger structure's failing rhythm. It's dying, Astra corrected, her skin darkening with emotion. The resonance patterns are breaking down. We've tried everything we know to stabilize it. But she gestured to the monitoring stations around the chamber, where other luminary worked frantically to maintain the heart's failing systems. Sarah approached one of the monitoring stations, studying the complex displays of energy flows and quantum states. Her mind raced, connecting patterns she saw with theories she'd studied back on Earth. These energy signatures, they're not just power fluctuations. They're more like brain waves. Yes, a new voice said. An elderly luminary emerged from behind the heart, her skin shimmering with deep wise colors. I am Elder Lyra, keeper of the heart's memories. And you, Sarah Chen, see what many of my people have forgotten. The heart is not just a power source, it is conscious. Sarah's scientific training warred with what she was hearing, but after everything she'd seen, she forced herself to keep an open mind. A conscious crystal. How is that possible? Not just one consciousness, Lyra explained, leading them closer to the heart. It is a collective. Every thought, every memory, every dream of our people for thousands of generations, all stored and shared through the crystal matrix. But now, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the chamber. The heart's light flickered violently, and several of the orbiting crystals fell from their paths, shattering against the floor. Alarms blared as the luminary technicians rushed to stabilize the system. The patterns are collapsing faster than before, Astra reported, her hands dancing over a control interface. We have hours at most before total failure. Sarah stared at the heart, her mind racing. If it was truly a conscious entity, a repository of collective memory and thought, you said it responds to consciousness, to thought patterns. What if it's not dying, but evolving? What if it needs new patterns to grow into? Lyra's eyes widened. The ancient texts speak of this, a time when the heart would need to transform, to incorporate new forms of consciousness to continue its growth. But we never imagined a human consciousness. Sarah finished. Something completely different from what it's known before. She turned to face the heart directly. I need to interface with it. Impossible, one of the technicians protested. The neural load would overwhelm your human mind. Even our people can only connect briefly, and we've evolved alongside it for millennia. But Sarah was already removing her helmet, ignoring the warnings from her suit's systems. My neural interface, she explained, tapping the small port at the base of her skull. It's designed to handle massive data loads. If I can connect through it, filter the input. Astra stepped forward. I will help you. Our minds together might have a better chance of surviving the connection. Her skin began to glow with a fierce determination. The next few minutes were a blur of activity as the luminary technicians worked to modify their systems to interface with Sarah's neural port. The heart's energy continued to fluctuate dangerously, each surge sending tremors through the chamber. Finally, everything was ready. Sarah lay on a crystal bed beside the heart, with Astra beside her. Elder Lyra stood over them, her hands hovering above their heads. Once the connection is established, you must find the heart's true pattern, Lyra instructed. Not what it was, but what it is becoming. Guide it through the transformation. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of an entire civilization's future resting on what they were about to attempt. I'm ready. The connection blazed to life, and Sarah's world exploded into light and consciousness. She was everywhere and nowhere, flowing through crystal matrices vast as cities, touching minds and memories spanning millennia. Beside her, Astra's consciousness glowed like a star, helping her navigate the overwhelming flood of information. And there, at the center of it all, they found the heart's true nature, not dying, but struggling to break free of old patterns, reaching for something new. Together, human and luminary, they began to guide it toward its next evolution, even as the chamber shook with the forces they were unleashing. The transformation had begun, and there would be no turning back. Trial by fire. Inside the crystalline network, Sarah's consciousness merged with patterns of light and thought that defied human understanding. Astra's presence beside her was an anchor in the storm of information that rushed through their joined minds. The heart's vast intelligence surrounded them, its ancient awareness acknowledging their presence with curiosity and desperate need. It's like an ocean. Sarah's thoughts rippled through the network, an ocean of memories and dreams. But the beauty of this moment was shattered by warning pulses that reverberated through the crystal matrix. The physical chamber was becoming unstable. The heart's transformation was releasing enormous amounts of energy, threatening to tear apart the very foundations of Crystallis. Through their shared connection, Sarah could sense the panic of the luminary technicians above. The chamber's containment fields were failing. If they couldn't stabilize the transformation, The resulting explosion would destroy everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. We need to guide it. Astra's thoughts merged with Sarah's. Show it the way forward, but carefully. Too fast, and the energy release will destroy us all. Too slow, and the old patterns will collapse completely. Together, they began to weave their consciousness through the heart's vast network. Sarah's human perspective. Linear, focused, driven by curiosity and determination, provided new pathways for the ancient intelligence to explore. Astra's luminary understanding helped translate these new patterns into forms the heart could integrate. But something was wrong. As they worked to guide the transformation, Sarah sensed resistance within the crystal matrix, not from the heart itself, but from accumulated patterns that had become rigid over millennia. The old programming. Elder Lyra's voice reached them through the network. It's fighting the change. The chamber shook violently. Through her lingering connection to her physical senses, Sarah could hear crystal shards raining down from the ceiling. The temperature in the chamber was rising rapidly as excess energy built up in the system. We need to break through the old patterns, Sarah projected. But if we do it too quickly, the backlash could kill us both, Astra finished. But we have no choice. The containment fields are about to fail. Sarah made a decision. Drawing on her neural interface's processing power, she began filtering through the heart's vast database of memories and patterns, searching for points of flexibility, places where change was already trying to happen naturally. There, she guided Astra's attention to a complex node of crystalline thought. The heart's been trying to evolve on its own, but these old subroutines keep forcing it back into familiar patterns. If we can just. Together, they pushed against the rigid programming, offering the heart new options, new ways to grow. It was like trying to redirect a river while swimming in it. The force of ancient thought patterns threatened to overwhelm them at every moment. In the physical world, the chamber was reaching critical conditions. The floating crystals had begun to shatter one by one, unable to contain the surging energies. The luminary technicians were evacuating, all except Elder Lyra, who remained at her station, helping to maintain the fragile connection between Sarah, Astra, and the heart. The containment field is at 12%. Someone shouted, "We need to abort." But inside the network, Sarah and Astra had finally found the key. The heart's consciousness surged forward, breaking through centuries of accumulated patterns. New crystalline structures began to form, incorporating both human and luminary thought patterns into something entirely new. The transformation accelerated. Energy coursed through the chamber like lightning. But now it was controlled, purposeful. The heart was not just changing. It was helping to guide its own evolution. Sarah felt her consciousness beginning to fade. The neural load was too much for her human brain to handle, even with the interface. But before she could pull back, Astra's presence wrapped around her like a protective shield. Together, Astra's thoughts merged with hers. We finish this together. In a final, desperate push, they helped the heart complete its transformation. The rigid patterns of the past dissolved, replaced by new, flexible structures that could grow and adapt. The very nature of the crystal matrix was changing, becoming something that neither human nor luminary had imagined possible. The physical chamber filled with blinding light. Sarah felt herself being pulled back into her body, Astra's consciousness carefully guiding her return. As awareness of her physical form returned, she realized she was different. The connection had changed her, just as it had changed the heart. When she opened her eyes, the chamber had transformed. The crystal heart pulsed with new life, its light neither dimming nor surging but flowing in complex, beautiful patterns. The smaller crystals hadn't just reformed, they had evolved, creating intricate new structures that filled the air with harmony. Elder Lyra helped Sarah sit up, her ancient eyes filled with wonder. You've done it. The heart. It's more than it was, more than we ever dreamed it could be. But as Sarah turned to thank Astra, she realized that their ordeal wasn't over. The luminary lay motionless beside her, her skin barely glowing. The strain of protecting Sarah during the transformation had taken a terrible toll. "No," Sarah whispered, reaching for her friend's hand. "Don't you dare leave now. We did this together. And by God, we're going to see it through together." The heart pulsed in response to her emotions, and Sarah realized that their connection wasn't completely gone. Perhaps there was still a way to save Astra if she could just figure out how to use their new bond with the transformed heart. The future of both their peoples might depend on what happened next. A bridge between worlds. Sarah refused to let go of Astra's hand, feeling the faint pulse of life still flowing through her friend's crystalline skin. The transformed heart chamber hummed with new energy, its patterns shifting in response to Sarah's distress. Through their lingering connection, she could sense the vast intelligence they had helped create, no longer just a repository of memories, but something alive and aware in ways she was only beginning to understand. "There must be a way," Sarah said, looking up at Elder Lyra. "The heart is stronger now, more flexible. Can't we use it to help her?" Lyra placed her hands on the crystal bed where Astra lay. "The connection between you remains, but to save her, you would need to go back in, and after what you've just endured, that could kill you both." Sarah's neural interface buzzed with residual energy from the transformation. She could feel the new pathways that had been carved into her mind, allowing her to sense the heart's presence even without direct connection. An idea began to form. "Not back in," she said slowly. "Forward. The heart isn't just a storage system anymore. It's become a bridge between different types of consciousness, different ways of being." She turned to the floating crystals that now moved in complex, beautiful patterns around them. "And we helped build it." Understanding dawned in Lyra's ancient eyes. "Yes, the new patterns you created together. They might be able to sustain her, help her heal." Sarah placed her free hand on the crystal bed, feeling it resonate with her touch. The neural interface activated automatically, connecting her to the heart's network. But this time, the connection was gentle, controlled. The vast intelligence they had helped transform responded to her presence with warmth and recognition. Through this new connection, Sarah could see Astra's consciousness, a flickering light, dimmed but not extinguished. The strain of protecting Sarah's mind during the transformation had drained her energy to critical levels, but the heart's new matrix offered possibilities that hadn't existed before. "I need your help." Sarah projected her thoughts into the network. "Both of you." The heart's response was immediate. New crystalline structures began to form around Astra's body, creating a cocoon of living light. Sarah guided the process, using her understanding of both human and luminary biology to help the heart create the right patterns for healing. Minutes stretched into hours as they worked. The council of speakers arrived, drawn by reports of the heart's transformation. They stood in awe at the changes in the chamber, at the new forms of crystal life that had emerged from the transformation. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Astra's skin began to glow brighter. The crystal cocoon dissolved, revealing subtle changes in her form. Her iridescent skin now held patterns similar to the heart's new matrix, a visible sign of how deeply the transformation had affected her. Her eyes opened, focusing immediately on Sarah. "You stayed," she whispered. Sarah smiled, exhausted but relieved. "Of course I did. Partners don't abandon each other." The council stepped forward, led by an elder whose skin shimmered with deep blue light. "What you have achieved here goes beyond saving our civilization. You have shown us a new way forward, one that embraces change and growth instead of fearing it." Through their enhanced connection to the heart, Sarah and Astra could sense the truth of these words. The transformation hadn't just saved the crystal heart, it had evolved it into something new. A true bridge between different forms of consciousness and ways of understanding the universe. "The gathering," Astra said, sitting up with Sarah's help. "It was never just about maintaining our traditions, was it? It was preparing us for this moment. A gathering of minds and ways of thinking." Sarah agreed. Human determination and creativity meeting luminary wisdom and harmony. She looked around at the transformed chamber. "But this is just the beginning, isn't it?" The heart pulsed in agreement, sharing visions of possibility through their connection. Other human ships would come, drawn by Sarah's emergency beacon. The luminary would no longer need to hide their civilization. Together, they could explore new ways of combining technology and consciousness, finding solutions to problems that neither species could solve alone. "You'll stay?" Astra asked, her hand still linked with Sarah's. "Help us understand these changes, build this bridge between our peoples." Sarah thought of Earth, of the rescue ships that would eventually come searching for her. But she also thought of the incredible opportunities for discovery and growth that lay before them. The heart's transformation had changed her too. She could never go back to being just a human explorer. "Yes," she said, feeling the rightness of the decision. After all, someone needs to help translate between human and luminary ways of thinking. Who better than someone who's experienced both? The heart's light pulsed brighter, as if in approval. Above them, through the crystal spires of Crystallis, the twin moons began to align again, not an ending this time, but a beginning. A new chapter in the story of both their peoples, written in paths of light and consciousness, bridging the vast distances between the stars. Sarah Chen, who had arrived as a stranded explorer, now stood as a bridge between worlds. And in the transformed heart chamber, surrounded by the beauty of the evolved crystal life, she knew that the greatest discoveries still lay ahead, in the space between what was and what could be, where different minds met and new realities were born.